Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Maryland Public Service Commission's Power Maryland hearings. We are on day 2. We're moving right along. Our goal will be to finish by sometime between 1 and 2, so we will not break for lunch. We'll just continue. We're making good progress. Next up is SMECO, so we'd like to welcome them. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mark McDougall on behalf of Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative. To my immediate right is Jeff Shaw. Mr. Shaw is SMECO's Vice President of Distributed Energy and Sustainability. And to his right is Jennifer Raley, and Ms. Raley is SMECO's Program Manager for Demand-Side Management. The way we'd like to work it today, if it pleases the Commission, is that Mr. Shaw will make some opening remarks, and then we have a slide deck which presents our semi-annual report summary, and Ms. Raley will present that. So if the Commission pleases, I can turn it over to Mr. Shaw.
Great. Good morning, Mr. Shaw.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Apologies for not being here yesterday afternoon to be able to speed things along. Had a family issue needed to attend to, so I promised to be brief. I was able to watch all day yesterday on the computer and take lots of notes, so that's what I wanted to address here. First thing this morning, Commissioner Richards, one of your first lines of questioning was, what's next? What are we looking at? I think you heard a little bit yesterday around the RPP and midstream programs. Last cycle we were able to do a smart thermostat pilot, and we are working that into a smart home pilot that we'll be doing this year. So that's what you're seeing from us here in the immediate future. We are talking as utilities, we're talking as groups to make sure that we can bring those answers to you in the very near future for the next sets of filings that you'll be seeing. So we're well aware of what's going on in the lighting program as well, so we hope to have some answers for you.
Great. And now, having had a chance to look at your slide deck, I'm kind of interested to hear from the utilities what they think of the whole financing question too. Is that something that would help, especially looking at some of the home performance programs?
Certainly. I do have some notes around that, so I'll just jump ahead to that. The financing program is something we've talked about extensively before with the Commission under Case 9373. So there's quite a developed case jacket around financing and what we think. We've offered financing in the past with the mHelp program when it was up, and we offered financing today. It's not a buy down or anything like that, but we do have links on our website where we could offer people financing options, especially with our assisted home performance program that we had operational. We'd love to discuss financing. It'll all come down to the Commission's decision on what level you're comfortable with if we're going into the market and working with banks and lending institutions to buy down rates. Is what it'll come down to. And in the past, the Commission hasn't been all too comfortable with that. So something we could definitely discuss and look forward to. So
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner O'Donnell, you had some questions yesterday, I believe, to the Office of People's Counsel around SMECO and the 2% goal and how it got there. A lot of history around that. We kind of went back and forth in October when we brought before you an insufficient plan, and then we beefed that up for you. But there's a lot around that. Mr. Hill did a pretty good job in his recollections on how things did occur back in 2014 into 2015 and how that goal got set for us. So if you have any more questions around that, I'd be glad to take those.
Sure. So we talked about maybe SMECO coming back with a proposal to reset that 2% goal back in October. Do you have anything along those lines or any thoughts on that?
We did. We filed that with our semi-annual in January. We'll be beefing up a few of the programs, but the one that's going to make the biggest difference in getting to the 2% goal will be KIT's program for us.
But I'm talking about an actual reduction of that, resetting the baseline.
That's a great question. Never really thought about coming forward to ask for a reduction of that baseline because the legislature's out there for us and the goal is set in the legislature for us, and I'd have to work internally in SMECO on how that conversation would go and then how that would get before you in the legislature. So.
Yeah, that's a discussion I think is worth having. I mean, to me it's striking if you look at the goals of all the utilities under EmPOWER. There's only one that's set at 2%, and that's a challenge. We know the challenge in the Southern Maryland region because of the dearth of large commercial customers, large C&I customers, and I just think it's worth exploring, and I think that I don't want to speak for the commission, but there may be some interest on the commission in at least having a discussion about that, and maybe the other commissioners have some questions they'd like to ask too on that.
Okay. Appreciate that feedback.
I mean, we want our goals to be realistic. We don't want them. We want them to be aspirational, but a goal that's set that is not achievable is not doing any good, I don't think.
You're right, and it has been difficult, especially when we get in these seats before you, to answer a lot of the questions why we've been short over the past 2 years. So you're correct.
Thank you.
And then yesterday was also a lot of discussion around limited income. NRDC was talking about the lack of what the utilities are doing in that space, and a lot of that can fall upon us in our write-up. We just didn't specifically use the words limited income in our write-up, but here to tell you today, we do a lot for the limited income subset outside of the DHCD programs. We've done food banks. We've had our assisted home performance program. We're in the retail space, the Dollar General stores like those. In the QHEC program, there's several hundred participants in our QHEC that we can see in our system that are marked as receiving assistance. And even into the home energy reports, there's over 1,000 of our just over 3,000 that we have marked that are participating in our home energy reports. So across the portfolio, it is occurring. I need to do a better job in explaining that in the semi-annual report, and we'll take that going forward.
So, Mr. Shaw, in terms of QHEC, if a low-income customer asks for a QHEC, because now you have the authority to go ahead and perform that, you don't have to defer it to DHCD. Is that what you do?
We do. Okay. If they come direct to us, or if they've been pushed over to us from DHC, that's what we'll be able to do as well.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and with those short remarks, I am finished unless you have any more questions for me before I turn it over to Ms. Raley.
You can always come back.
Certainly. I'm not going anywhere.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Jennifer Raley for SMECO. I'm here to go over the 2017 semi-annual report for Q3, Q4. We started out with the consumer, retail, and residential programs, which achieved 100% of the 2017 gross wholesale megawatt hours savings goal. The commercial and industrial achieved 93%. We also received the 2017 Energy Star Partner of the Year for Sustainable Excellence Award.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Some of our portfolio highlights, some of the programs that did very well. There's a list of them here. And then we have some of our challenges that we face with some of our programs. And with those programs that we had challenges, some of them under the appliance, we continue to be impacted by the CE standards for refrigerators. Our top rebated appliances were the washer and dryers. We did see our online store continue to grow. It saw a 46% increase in measures sold as compared to 2016. For the appliance recycling, we incentivized 13,469 units, with refrigerators still being the most popular item recycled. But we did host a number of small appliance events, and we're continuing to host those to collect more of the small appliances. And we did see an increase in the number of appliances recycled in the second half of 2017 as compared to the first half.
So, Ms. Raley, backing up a page, sorry.
Okay.
You seem to have had some really good success with the multifamily. Can you maybe tell us how you think
I
you
have a
achieved
slide
that,
on that.
success? Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do have a slide on that,
All right.
so I can touch on that at the
Okay.
closer to the end. On our next slide for the home performance with Energy Star, We continue to promote the performance-based incentive rebate structure. We did see an increase in the average job savings by 42% and an increase in the job participants by 150% as compared to the first Q1, Q2, which we believe reflects the implementation of the PBI rebate structure. The assistant home performance still struggled. We opened that up to all home performance contractors. We removed the initial screening for the assistant home performance customers and promoted the PBI incentive structure, but the program still struggled. And then to the multifamily. The program itself struggled to meet the original savings and incentive goals, and as a result, the goals were adjusted and the funding shifted to other programs. That shift decreased the program goals, so we were able to increase some participation, which we picked up at the end of the Q3, Q4, which reflects that in the savings, 334% increase of the savings. So that was just due to some projects that came in, but overall, through the 3-year cycle, the program did not do well. So that program, we have concluded it as of 2017, but we still focus on the multifamily sector, and we still have rebates available for the multifamily under some of our residential and commercial programs, so they will still be serviced through our programs. We just won't have a standalone program any longer. And then our next item was an item from Order 88514, which was an item SMECO was asked to take a look at and consider, which is the Small Business Advanced Financing. We did take a look at that option, and we did find that in the past we had some issues with our billing system. We have made changes through our billing system, and now it is capable of handling the advanced payment structure. We did look at our customers in the past, and we feel that the majority of the customers are participating regardless of whether that advance is available or not. We found that our customers were willing to pay close to $1 million of their own money over the past 3 years, and that in 2017, out of the 622 closed projects, 364 of the projects had cost exceeding $1,000. So we're seeing that our customers are still willing to participate even without having that advanced option. We will continue to monitor that, and if we look at changing any of the incentives and lowering the percentage under the small business, this may be a viable option for us to be offering to our customers. So we're going to continue to monitor that. And then finally, my last slide is just on the work groups. SMECO continues to be an active participant in all the work groups, and we look forward to attending and working with the other stakeholders throughout the work groups. And that is all I had. Is there any questions you have for me?
One question, does SMECO envision growing your behavioral-based components of your program to a larger percentage of your portfolio?
As far as the percentage, overall percentage of the portfolio in the 18 through the 20, I can't quote the exact percent. It has grown a little bit coming into that time frame from over the previous 3 years, but we are not increasing the current 75,000 group that we are targeting, but the percentage of it has grown. I just can't quote you that exact growth.
In your discussion with Commissioner Richard regarding next steps or what's next, if the lighting opportunities diminish and we're not going to have growth in the excessive growth in the behavioral programs, is that the component that you're going to use to make the difference? What's next?
It will probably be a good portion of that, yes, sir. When I look at the other offerings of the other programs that we've been operating since 2010, looking at appliances or home performance, we've never achieved those kind of saving levels that we would need to do to pick up lighting. I'm not going to say we're going to use all of that deficiency from lighting with the home energy reports. I'm hoping the smart homes comes up to be a portion of that, but I don't know those percentages at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're an outlier in that regard. I just see this trend because it's an easy fix. Well, you listened to the discussions yesterday.
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Mr. Shaw, did SMECO participate and propose or was willing to work with the other parties regarding a budget billing pilot regarding convenience paying customers?
Budget billing.
I thought I read as part of one of the filings that
Oh, yes, sir. It was taking me a moment to get through there. Sorry, I blanked out there for a second. What we were looking at for the home energy report side of things, I don't know if it was the budget billing, or we were going to do the budget billing side for the home energy pilot, yes. Yes, that's the one pilot we were looking at doing, so.
Okay. Well, I was just curious as to what your thoughts were in terms of moving forward with it. As obviously you know, it's been an ongoing concern for many years that consumers didn't always read the information in the bills that were sent to them. So for consumers that use convenience pay, like auto pay and budget billing, it's even less likely that they're reading all of that material. So I'm just curious as to how the company looked to proceed with a pilot where they would convey information.
And I think that's knowing that they're not looking at bills and because they're doing auto pay, so we're hoping to target them more on the behavioral side and try to encourage them to participate more by using the behavioral reports to do that.
So are there other means you're interested in exploring to encourage them to pay attention more to what's in the information utility sharings? Maybe I'm just curious as to how you would reach out to them if they're not.
Well, for them, we have, not only the mailings and email addresses, that kind of stuff, and we'll use several means to try to reach them and be able to see whether they're, paying attention to what they're getting and if they're participating. So we will have ways to measure that once we're sending those reports and targeting that group.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Just interested, SMECO, you pretty much completed the installation of your AMI meters. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Yeah. Are you finding ways are you looking at ways to how you might use the AMI meters to enhance, advance, improve, make more efficient your EmPOWER programs?
We are, three things come to mind here initially. The first will be CVR. I think you heard a little bit about that yesterday. Now we do have the end-of-the-line monitoring that we need to have a full, robust CVR program. That was filed and approved. So that is a way we will be utilizing that system. You saw a filing from us come in on April 6th regarding time of use rates. Inside of that time of use rate filing is some conversation around a web portal that we are currently constructing. That web portal is another way we tend to, we're going to get after those customers using AMI data to get to them for the web presentment of that information so they can take a look at it.
Yeah, and Commissioner, to piggyback on that, while we were fully deployed as of the end of last year, we're still in the process of identifying radio frequency gaps in our system and building towers with antennas on them to make sure that coverage is complete throughout Southern Maryland. And so we want to make sure that our AMI system is operating as we expect before we take that next step for the web portal, because we want our customers to be able to take full advantage of that without the gaps that we're seeing right now.
Great. Well, thank you for that information. I think we all want to derive as much value as we possibly can from this new technology, so it's good to hear that you are looking at that for the future of your EmPOWER programs. Thank you.
Certainly.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question, so thank you. No, thank you for doing that. That was very helpful, and I echo Commissioner Richards' sentiments on that. As we're anxiously awaiting the final rollout, and as you develop programs to help utilize the AMI data, we're anxious to see the results of that. So thank you for working on that.
So yesterday, Mr. Shaw, we heard some concern expressed about in the discussion about the EmPOWER logo versus the company's, the cooperative's logo and that sort of thing. Do you have any concerns with respect to being able to use them, equitably, and how have you all envisioned that working?
If you don't mind, I'm going to punt on that question.
I'm sorry,
Ms. Raley.
Ms. Raley,
That's okay.
We were heavily involved in the work group and with the logo discussions. With some of the loopholes, as you said, Mr. Richards, one of the signage in the stores on the shelving is some of the stuff that the utilities were kind of concerned with because it is very small and very limited space. But along with that signage, there is another banner that hangs there that would have the EmPOWER logo and the SMECO logo or the utility logo on it, alongside the small signage stickers that are on the shelves. So for the most part, anything that has the utility logo on it, we would be able to put the EmPOWER logo on also. It's just certain areas where it's very small and would be hard to put a logo on, but there would be signage around that would still reflect the EmPOWER logo.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just add one. Thank you very much for that answer. And I think we heard from both Maryland Energy Administration and OPC that they do want to work with the utilities to come up with feasible and workable ways to again try to find that parity, that balance. But I would just comment that for me, when I go to the Home Depot and Oxon Hill, that's where I will encounter EmPOWER program. And so if I don't see it there, I'm not going to know about it. When I'm listening in the car, I'll hear a radio ad. And that's, again, where I would encounter some kind of a touch from marketing on EmPOWER. Or if I am at my computer and I see a banner, that is another place where I would, again, have an opportunity to learn about EmPOWER. So I think it is very important that we try to work through these issues, come up with feasible solutions, because at least for me, and just anecdotally, that would be pretty much the only time I would encounter an EmPOWER program. And so if I don't see it, hear it then, I'm not going to know about it. So Anyway, I really appreciate your answer today. Thank you.
Just to follow up on the previous conversation on goals and aspirations, I would be interested in hearing the company's thoughts on what you believe is possible to us. What is possible within the bounds of the statute to adjust your goals. I am currently under the belief that we have some latitude there and still stay within the bounds of the statutory requirements, as long as we're showing adequate progress towards achieving a reasonable goal and meeting the statutory requirements. So I would like the company, request that the company give some thought to that, and maybe in a subsequent filing give us that information so we have a basis on which to consider that and to proceed.
I appreciate those remarks, and I see Mr. McDougall has feverishly jotted it all down, so duly noted.
Anything else for SMECO? If not, all right, let's turn it over to Ms. Shaw.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Paige Shaw on behalf of staff. I'm just going to give a quick overview of how SMECO did in 2017 and the 2015 to 2017 program cycle. In 2017, SMECO achieved energy savings of 1.59% of 2013 energy sales. Most of these savings came from the lighting behavior-based and prescriptive programs. While SMECO did increase energy savings every year while staying under budget, it wasn't enough to reach the 2% goal. And in the 2015 to 2017 program cycle, SMECO did come in under budget while getting close to reaching the energy savings and demand savings goals. Based on SMECO's 2018 to 2020 approved plans, staff expects SMECO to have an increased performance during the new program cycle. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Any questions for
I just think it's probably fair to ask our staff to start thinking about the same request that I just gave to the company with regard to your opinion of what is the realm of possibilities for us in regard to their goal.
Definitely, we'll look into it.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else? If not, thank you, Ms. Shaw. Thank you very much. We
Thank you,
appreciate your
Commissioner.
presentation. Next up is BG&E.
Mr. Wolf? Mr. Walls? Yeah. Yep, yeah, so plug that one. Push the
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Kim Curry, representing Baltimore Gas and Electric Company. We have a presentation to you today on our semi-annual report. With me at the table to my immediate left is Bill Wolf, the manager of our commercial and industrial programs. Next to him is Mr. Walls, Chris Walls. He is the manager of our residential energy efficiency programs. And next to him is Gina Calvert, who is the manager of our demand response programs. I've distributed the presentation, and I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Wolf.
And I like it already.
Last minute addition. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. So 2017 was another strong year for BG&E. First and foremost, BG&E exceeded its filed interim goal of 1.94% by reaching 2.05% of the 2013 baseline. This resulted in BG&E producing over 668,000 megawatt hours, or 114% of its full year forecast. And we did this by only spending 69% of our targeted budget. In addition, our second half savings was even greater than the first half. This yielded over 375,000 megawatt hours, representing 120% of our target. As Commission staff has noted in their comments, BGE achieved its highest reported energy savings of any program year since 2009. And this has increased every year with the exception of one, which occurred in 2011. In addition, BG&E's cost per kWh reached its lowest level since the program's inception in 2009 at just 21 cents per kWh annualized, and producing a life cycle cost of just over 2 cents per kWh for life cycle. So we've provided these programs at a very low cost. In addition to our success in delivering energy savings, BG&E's demand response and energy efficiency programs produced over 830 megawatts in demand savings. So along with these great results, BGE is also proud of the recognition it received in 2017. In April, BG&E was honored with its 8th consecutive Energy Star Partner of the Year for sustained excellence. In June, the American Council of Energy Efficiency Economy released results of its first Utility Energy Efficiency Scorecard, ranking the 51 largest U.S. electric utilities. And in this survey, BG&E was ranked 4th nationally, and we're very proud of that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And finally, in J.D. Power's 2017 Utility Products and Services Study, this was among 26 utilities. BG&E ranked 2nd for customer awareness, and 1st residential, and 3rd in commercial in customer participation. So if there's no general overall questions, I will turn it over to Mr. Walls, who will now present the residential.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair. As we always do, we just start with a highlight or a high level of reminding you of the programs that specifically relate to the residential energy efficiency programs. And we kind of break them up into 2 groups, the retail-based, which is the lighting, appliance, and appliance recycling programs, and then what we call the contractor or builder-based, which is the quick home energy checkup, HVAC rebates, home performance with Energy Star, and then finally Energy Star new construction program. So on the next slide, to give you a couple of highlights, the residential energy efficiency program had a great year as well, which contributed to BG's overall great year for energy efficiency, where we achieved 127% of our overall portfolio megawatt hour forecasts for the second half and 112% for the full year megawatt hour forecast. This was largely driven by the lighting program, and you can see the great results there. We're up to about 31 million bulbs sold since 2008, when we began selling or marking down energy efficient bulbs. The quick home energy checkup also drove those great results with 36,000 participants and 462,000 energy efficiency measures installed. Residential new construction continues to be a viable and very vibrant area for energy efficiency, with 3,200 homes in 2017 qualifying for the Energy Star new construction program. And then lastly, the recycling program contributed as well, achieving 90% of the forecasted energy savings. So there have been a number of comments made and topics raised, and so I wanted to address those as well. Mr. Shaw and Ms. Raley did a great job of already covering some of the things that I was going to cover, but just to elaborate on some of the things that they talked about, Commissioner Richard, you mentioned what's after lighting, and I can assure you it's something that those of us in the industry talk about it regularly. In fact, just last week, believe it or not, I spent 2.5 hours with my colleagues talking just about lighting and where lighting was headed. It's something, of course, this commission is eager to know about, and of course we had proceedings last fall on this as well. I guess my conclusion at this point is that there's no one thing that will cover lighting as it begins to go away. Around next year into 2020, as best we can tell. With that, and Mr. Shaw already mentioned the smart thermostat program, the smart home pilot program. Certainly midstream is what we're looking at on the residential and C&I side. There's some mention of locational benefits being applied to energy efficiency. We are looking at micro-targeting our customers more effectively. and introducing a virtual audit concept, and also potentially HVAC tune-ups. So I envision for residential EE over the next several years is it will be a number of things that we'll continue to look at to begin to replace that lighting energy savings. And we all know this as well. On just the residential energy efficiency portfolio, it relates to about 60% of the portfolio, so it will not be easily replaced. Moving over to finance.
Thank you for that, and also the question about financing. Is that something that could actually help, I guess, boost the home performance with Energy Star program? And I know there are a lot of issues that a work group would have to work out.
Sure.
But I'm just curious what BGE position on that is.
Absolutely. So we fully support the benefit of financing, and in particular, reasonably priced or low-cost financing, and that was one of the concepts that was brought to the Commission, as well as bought-down financing to actually, because these are unsecured loans, so they're typically higher in their interest rates. So even looking at buying down the interest rate to make it more approachable for customers. But specifically what BG has done, and again, Mr. Shaw mentioned this as well, and we have similar links. The B-Smart program, which is, I believe, funded by DOE and administered by DHCD. We have a link on our website for that. We've had a link for B-Smart, as well as EFS, Energy Financing Solutions, which is the Wisconsin-based Energy Efficiency Corp. Both of those links provide unsecured loans to customers specifically around home performance with Energy Star, as well as HVAC improvements that customers might make. We continue to look at those opportunities. In fact, B-Smart, we had a representative come just about mid-part of last month with all of our home performance with Energy Star contractors, where we had a contractor meeting, and we had this individual present the B-Smart program to ensure that the contractors knew about that as an opportunity for their customers. We also see contractors, though, developing relationships with their own local banks, and then they bring that forward to their customers as well to give them opportunities for financing these projects.
Is B-Smart just all federal? Is that a federal incentive?
I don't know specifically. I think it might be. Digging around on the websites over the last several months and trying to understand it a little bit more, I think that's where the funding comes from. I do know it's administered by DHCD, and perhaps they would have some more detail about where the funding comes from.
Okay, yeah, I just wonder how long of a period that will be available.
The individual who spoke on behalf of it was actually EPA, so perhaps there's some federal level of funding.
Yeah. Mr. Wells, in terms of for finance, in terms of the buy down, if I recall from the Commission's last efforts to look at financing, I mean one of the problems was that the buy down, because these were unsecured loans, was pretty expensive, and it would all be funded through EmPOWER. And then even with the buy down, we were finding that rates, I could get a cheaper rate in my credit union than I could under the buy down program. And so I think if we just, as we look at financing, we need to make sure we don't end up in the same place we were last time around, where we just have a very expensive program that doesn't really offer any significant benefit.
Yeah, your points are well taken, and I recall the same thing and the other thing that seemed to be of mixed results is financing for everyone, and will that truly move the needle in conversions to try to increase the conversion rate from a home performance with Energy Star audit over to jobs? And it just relates to the way I would characterize it is it's just another option for customers. Will it absolutely change everyone's mind that, oh, now given I have financing, I will now move forward with a job? We didn't necessarily see that, and we don't see it nationally. It's another option for a customer to provide, or for us to provide a customer to move to the next step. Just like we've tried to provide other options, we have an energy coach now that we're instituting for 2018 that we filed in our 18 through 20 plan. We think that's yet another choice for customers to make it easier for them to participate in a home performance. It can be seen as a complicated program, and so to take those next steps and have an unbiased resource that the customer can go to and ask questions about how do I prioritize what's my next investment, we think that will reap many rewards as well. And we've seen other utilities use that, and we plan to take advantage of that. So my point in all of this is I think you have to offer several options for customers depending upon where they are and meet them where they are to get them to take that next step. Lastly, on quick home energy checkup, and it kind of goes a little bit to the lighting, is that lighting, as we know, has been a pretty significant portion of the quick home energy checkup, and we've done something this year that we're excited to see the results, and it's still early, but we're actually capturing which specific lights are being replaced in the quick home energy checkup. So the idea, as you all know, is we go in and perform an audit, and we'll actually uninstall inefficient lighting and reinstall efficient lighting. And what we're finding is that there's still a lot of incandescent bulbs out there that we're replacing. The other thing that we're finding is that due to the color rendering index of most LED bulbs, lower wattages support the same or much lower wattages support, say, a 75-watt bulb, whereas a customer might previously thought, well, if I had a 75-watt previously, I need to replace it with some equivalent. Now, we know the wattages are lower because it's a more efficient bulb, but the color rendering, the watts per lumens per watt, tend to be a little bit higher with LED bulbs, so they're actually downsizing their wattages even more significantly than they might otherwise do, and so we're seeing that as being incremental energy savings for us. It's actually improved the energy savings of quick home energy checkup by about 10%. So we're excited. It's still early, but we're excited to see the results of that effort and that additional data collection and approach. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Wolf for the C&I review of 2017.
So similar to the residential programs, BG&E C&I programs are basically grouped into two categories. Programs such as our prescriptive, custom, new construction, our small business energy solutions, and the small business energy advance that supports it, along with our instant lighting discounts, which is our midstream program, and our combined heat and power offer incentives and technical support to customers looking to perform a building retrofit or to purchase new high-efficiency equipment. Our second group of programs, such as our building tune-up, our building operation training, our building analytics tools, and our automated benchmarking tool, provide the resources customers need to, first of all, analyze their building performance, make tune-ups to that performance, and do that without the higher cost of buying new equipment. So 2017 was also a successful year for BG&E C&I programs. The C&I programs achieved over 195,000 megawatt hours and reached 101% of its annual energy forecast. Again, this was accomplished by only spending 77% of the forecasted budget. Most of these savings was produced by our three largest programs. Our prescriptive program, which is our largest, achieved 125% of its forecast, or about 80,000 megawatt hours. Our midstream program achieved 158% of its forecast, producing about 45,000 megawatt hours.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Can you briefly explain to me what your how this midstream program worked?
Yeah, so our midstream program for the C&I is that we basically provide incentives to the lighting distributors to reduce the cost of lights so that when customers come in and purchase the light, instead of buying the bulb at $5 or $6 a bulb, they're buying it $1 or $2 a bulb. And so the distributor passes those incentives on to the customer that's buying it. And then we track where, in order for the customer to purchase those lights, they're required to provide an address. So we track to make sure that, first of all, that those lighting stays in the BG&E territory, and second, that the customer's not double dipping, so that they're not getting the incentive at the distributor and then filling out a rebate application as well.
Okay, thank you.
Since we're on the upstream, midstream point, could you comment on the OPC recommendation that we try to take a statewide approach on that? Does BGE have any thoughts on that? And I guess I would ask BGE and PHI, and are you already looking at having a unified approach among the Exelon companies?
Yes, in fact, we PHI and SMECO, and we're going to make sure we include Potomac Edison going forward, is we had a discussion about the midstream going forward for 2018 and what was going to be included in that. And so we have regular conversations because we realize that vendors will and customers will sort of chase where the higher incentives are. So if you have one jurisdiction where the incentives are very generous, they tend to all go into that area. And midstream, you've got to be very careful to make sure that the lighting, you want the lighting to stay in the territory for the utility that's providing those incentives. You don't want customers loading up trucks and then shipping them into another territory, or worse, outside of Maryland. So we have those conversations all the time.
So you're saying you do support the OPC recommendation? Just so I understand what your answer is.
I think as a goal, we should try to have a standardized approach in the midstream, at least for the commercial and industrial. I don't want to speak for residential. But you also have to realize that utilities are in different areas of where they are attaining the goal. And a midstream program provides a great way to either accelerate or decelerate where you are. So if you're behind in your goals, one utility may tend to offer higher incentives in the midstream program because you don't have to revise your rebate application and so forth like that in order to get up to where they need to be to meet the goal. Another utility that's doing well or is under budget constraints may feel that they don't need to offer as aggressive incentives in the midstream.
Okay, so that's more of a no.
For the C&I, I would say probably no, yes.
Just to elaborate a bit on the residential side, it's also, if you're asking for a yes or no, it's a no as well. However, I feel like we've demonstrated over the last number of years that we can, certainly the utilities, work together to provide consistent offerings, consistent incentives. This commission has been very clear about making sure that we provide consistent offerings across the state of Maryland. So we are active participants in the work group meetings and reach out to our stakeholders and our constituency to make sure that folks understand our approaches and that we are leveraging one another's capabilities. I think where the OPC and where we disagree, where the OPC went, if I interpret their proposal correctly, they were actually talking about having a program that would be run across the state by, I think they implied another entity or some separate entity. I don't want to speak for them specifically, but that's the way I interpreted it. We do disagree with that. Of course, we are, I think our performance demonstrates the fact that the utilities are very, very much involved. These are priorities for our efforts. You will absolutely get high participation and accomplishments by having the structure of the way we're implementing at a utility-based approach over the last 10 years. You will continue to see that in the midstream. For RPP, which is a retail products program, which is another midstream for appliances, that's actually a national program, and we have, again, the utilities have coalesced with or collaborated with the national DOE, EPA, RPP effort in order to ensure that we're getting consistency across the state of Maryland. And of course there's some consistency nationally because you're often working with retailers such as Home Depot or Lowe's, Walmart, that have obviously a national presence. And so we gain additional leverage by working collectively nationally with those national players as opposed to trying to approach them one utility at a time or even one state at a time. Thank you.
Okay, so along with our prescriptive and midstream program, BG&E also saw 2 CHP projects completed in 2017. And as we spoke to yesterday, they were at hospitals, which are absolutely great candidates, not only because they run 24 hours a day, but they have an annual heating load, and that's very important for CHP. We have a lot of customers that could have the CHP unit running on the electric perspective 24 hours a day. but the reality is they don't have a heating load. They only have that in the wintertime. So you really need a consistent heating load. And of course, hospitals have large laundry use, large hot water use, and so therefore that's why they're such great candidates for CHP.
Mr. Wolf, on those two projects, can you give me a sense of scale in terms of what the projects cost and what the incentives were or are with those, just to give me a sense of?
Sure. So for both of these projects, they've received about $1.8 million in incentives. We have a cap of $2.5 million. Customers really don't share in a lot of detail of what the projects would project, but I would say that they probably, if I was to speculate, I would probably say that they're in the $6 to $10 million range.
Very good. Thank you. That helps.
So combine these three programs, the prescriptive, midstream, and CHP, make up about 75% of our C&I energy savings. But BG&E also continues to utilize its smart meter building analytics. This helps customers raise awareness about their building performance. And as a result of using this tool, we saw a 40% increase in our building tune-up program. And that allowed the program to achieve 218% of its energy forecast. So if there's no further C&I questions, I will turn it over to Ms. Calvert to talk about our behavior and demand response programs.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Gina Calvert. I'm going to be talking, as Mr. Wolf said, about our behavioral energy efficiency and our demand response programs. Moving on to slide 11. Smart Energy Manager, as a reminder, that's our home energy report program, as well as our online tools and alerts and reports. I'm going to go through some program results for the second half of last year. We had 920,000 customers enrolled in SEM as of December. That's up from 904,000 in June. We sent out over 14.8 million home energy reports, which was up from 12.2 in June. We had almost 560,000 unique customer visits to the web-based energy management portal, which is, I think, an all-time high for us. This is a huge number. It's over half of our customers. Megawatt hour reduction goals, we hit 136,000, and that's with deemed savings from other EE programs backed out. We saved 2.56 million therms in 2017, and that's up from 1.93 in 2016. And that, between the electric and gas savings, it equates to about $19 million on customers' bills. It's a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation. So it's pretty significant savings from this behavioral program. Enhancements that we made over the past 6 months, net metering widget. This is for solar customers. It shows them net generation and credits versus net consumption. It's something we heard feedback from solar customers, so we provided a solution for them. As well as a dual fuel weekly usage report. So the usage report used to be electric only. It didn't give a holistic picture if you're a gas and electric customer, so we implemented a gas portion to this as well. It helps you kind of get a more holistic view of your usage. Talking about 19 and 20 approval, obviously BG is supportive of the Commission approving that. This is necessary to meet our energy efficiency goals in a cost-effective manner. It will help us to continue to provide customers with information they need to manage their energy use and achieve the significant savings that we are seeing from these programs. And it'll give us the opportunity to continue to enhance and evaluate the program, to provide the best products to our customers, to do things like pilots and enhancements and hear customer feedback, things that they'd like to see, all of which we do. You know, there's a lead time on those things, and knowing that we can plan out for 1 or 2 years is really helpful in how we roadmap our products.
I got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
So the program went from 12.2 million in June to 14.8 million home energy reports in December. What's the periodicity of those? How often?
So customers who are medium to high users, they get a home energy report every other month, so you should get around 6 a year. Customers who are low users will typically get 1. This is because someone in an apartment doesn't have the ability to reduce the way that a higher usage customer can reduce their use. So that's how the program's currently set up.
And what accounted for the increase? I mean, if you didn't change, did you change the periodicity, or did you change the population that you're sending them to?
No, it's the same population. The front half of the year, more campaigns potentially went out for summer readiness, that kind of thing. It was just how the program was designed for the year.
Okay. And how do you envision that changing in the 2019 and 2020 year cycles compared to 2017, 2018?
So we have a standard amount of reports that we are contracted through, and we kind of have the ability to send them as we want. So if we want to run various campaigns, say we want to do don't forget you're going to have a high winter bill, we could run campaigns to remind customers of what they should be setting their thermostat to, or maybe we want to promote fridge recycling. We can send out, we can use the allotment that we get for specialized campaigns. So that's something that we do take advantage of with EmPOWER.
In terms of percentage of the overall portfolio, what is the growth from 2018 to 2019?
It'll stay fairly consistent. So we can have targeted campaigns. So say we want to do a limited income push and we focus on those customers, we have the ability to do that. We kind of look at it year by year, trying to not have the same experience for customers year over year. Things like the pilot that we're doing where we're focusing on high usage customers. We've done things like that in the past as well. Just trying to stimulate and interest different groups. If you're always getting a report saying that you're at the bottom, you're not really going to feel motivated to do anything. So maybe giving that group of folks a separate treatment could incentivize them or encourage them to change their behavior or motivate them in a different way.
So the 12.2 million to 14.8 million kind of levels off and doesn't keep going up?
So this is for 2017. So next year we'll start over from the allotment that we get for the year, and it's a fairly steady cadence for most of our customers. Again, it can be campaign driven, why you would see fluctuations and different things like that.
Has the company identified overall programmatic kind of where that saturates?
So as far as a savings percentage, hitting 2% is typically where you're going to get with a behavioral report based on kind of what the industry has talked about. In certain areas of the country where maybe you have very high electric bills, like in California, you can see that get up to 5%, but it's not typical in this area to see that. We typically see 2%, and the longer a customer is getting the reports, the deeper the savings we tend to see. So for example, we had an initial group. It was the initial smart meters that rolled out in 2013. We call them the initial group. Their savings has been higher than the rolling group, which is basically everyone that came in after that since the beginning. So what that shows me is these are the customers who've received the most reports, and their savings tend to be the highest.
Do you think, does the company think that the behavioral programs are going to supplant the loss in capacity in the lighting programs going forward? You don't?
Not in entirety. I think there's room in there. So if we're at a 1.4% savings and we want to strive to get to the 2, I think we can keep pushing that. If we're looking for kind of a big thing to come up with 130,000 megawatt hours, I don't think you're going to squeeze that out of behavioral unless you come up with some other product. Maybe it's gamification or points and rewards or some other way to engage customers. But I think with the home energy reports, it does get difficult when you're trying to get past that 2%.
Okay. Did you participate in the work group on behavioral programs?
I was.
And you know then that in the previous order 88402, we asked the work group to look at a cap on behavioral programs, and the work group rejected that. Mm-hmm. Did you support that rejection?
I did.
But if you think it doesn't go much beyond 2, why not some reasonable cap to give us as a commission a tripwire to say, hey, these programs are growing?
I think it's a low cost. I mean, from my perspective, it's a low cost program. It touches all of our customers, regardless of renters, homeowners, apartments, large houses, small houses. It touches everyone, and if it's a low cost, I mean, in my perspective, it's like get as much as you can out of it.
Well, that's my fear, is to get as much as you can. I mean, I think we want it to be as efficient, cost effective as possible, and definitely see benefit to it. But if it simply grows, if we lose all these other capacities because we've cut those fields.
I think that the team working on this has a kind of an understanding that 2%, it's kind of almost like a natural cap. That getting beyond that is going to be difficult in this area.
We weren't prescriptive in where the cap was set. We just said entertain it, and we got nothing. I fail to see that. Why wouldn't you recommend a reasonable cap? The work group.
Perhaps I can elaborate a little bit too, that we see behavior in the entire portfolio. So to give you a perspective, our BGE's numeric annual goal is 635,000, give or take, 635,000 megawatt hours we have to achieve every single year. Behavior, you see, turned in around 140,000 megawatt hours, so that's the proportion. Lighting, as an example, residential lighting in 2017 was about 130,000 megawatt hours. So as lighting begins to go away, we look at this from an entire portfolio standpoint. What levers can we push and pull in order to try to make up the 130,000 in light of, and this is one element, what Ms. Calvert was just talking about, is 2% the cap or is it not? What's the weather? The weather certainly has a pretty significant impact on the behavior program. Additionally, the behavior program is a significant portion of leads for all the other programs. We not only send out messaging about how to use energy more wisely and turning off your lights and basic things like that, and this is where you compare to your customers, but we also, of course, lead them through to the next. How about participating in Home Performance with Energy Star? How about doing a quick home energy checkup? Those are all significant sort of pathways that we try to lead our customer down through. That behavior provides us a pretty significant portion of that next step for us.
I appreciate that. I'm trying to get to something much more simple. Is how do we put reasonable limitations on you going from a high-use customer periodicity of every other month to every 6 weeks or every month or every 2 weeks? I mean, just to pump the numbers up.
I think that with any of these messages, there is a sensitivity of how often you message to a customer. We don't want to be a thorn in their side. We absolutely want to be their trusted energy advisor. That's a balance that we play in all of our messaging around EmPOWER Maryland. And I see those same message balancing or limitation discussions happening with behavior along with all of our other programs.
I appreciate that. Ms. Calvert, what was the general sense of the work group from your perspective on this matter? How much was it really discussed, and was there any support whatsoever for entertaining the idea of a cap?
I think everyone pretty much felt like there should not be a cap. I think it was just, it's our low-cost option, and we want to get as much out of it as we can. And I will say this, I think that, when I look at my initial group and I'm seeing them hitting 1.7 and 1.8% savings, and I look at my rolling group and I'm seeing them at like 1.3, 1.4, there's a gap there, right? So if that larger group of 1.3 percenters can get up to the 1.8 percenters, we still have savings we can push out of them as they mature on the program.
Did the work group discuss that maybe there was interest on the commission, and that's why we took the time to put it in our previous order to ask the work group to look at it?
It was definitely discussed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You finished, Ms. Calvert?
So we'll move on to the next slide.
I had a question, but I'll wait.
I don't know if we have any more behavioral questions. No?
No, you can continue. Okay. We can always go back.
So we'll move on to Smart Energy Rewards. So this is our peak time rebate program. These are results as of last summer. We're just starting our season for this year, so in the middle of that. So program results, last summer was our 5th summer season. We've had a total of 15 events since the program inception. The events took place on July 13th and July 21st. We sent out 2.1 million emails, 1.7 million phone calls, and 75,000 texts over the 2 events. We had over 1 million customers eligible to participate, with participation rates increasing over the events from 70% on the first event to 78% for the second event. And the average credit that was paid out was $6.13. The load reducing capability for SER over 2017 was estimated to be 330 megawatts.
Ms. Calvert, with regard to the 2 energy saving days, I guess my summers are rolling together. I can't remember how hot it was last
I
summer.
know, we're almost back in. It's hard
Right.
reporting in this time.
So was is 2 normal, or do you expect in a regular hot summer you're going to have more than 2?
So we have to consider a couple things. The main thing being the baseline. So Maryland seems to have these weather where it's mild and then we get a really hot day. And we'll hear customers say, "Why aren't we calling an event today?" And the reason we don't is because we don't have any hot days in the baseline. So if you don't have any hot days in your baseline, they're being compared to cooler weather. They're never going to be able to earn a credit. So that would result in a poor customer experience for those customers. So what we like to see is 1 or 2 hot days in the baseline, which is the prior 14 days to the event day, so that the customers have an opportunity to earn a credit. And it's just how the weather worked last summer, that there were 2 days that worked, and unfortunately they were pretty much back to back. And it's for the team that works the events, it's typically a 3-day process. We send pre-event notifications out, we have the event, and then we send post notifications out the next day. So it was a busy 2 weeks for us, but really it's weather driven. I mean, if we can have events, we'll have them. We just have to wait for the temperature to cooperate with us.
If we have a long period of hot weather, is it likely then you'll have more events?
Absolutely.
Okay. And if PJM has and calls an event where they want to reduce load, is the Smart Energy Rewards program used for that?
So we would send out the messaging. So obviously for behavioral, we have to inform a customer that the event's taking place for them to take action. So PJM, we don't tend to know about emergencies in advance. So, if they say you have to push the button in 30 minutes, we can't even get the files over for notifications to go out in that time. So we have a lot of processes in place that look at, if they tell us that it's in 2 hours, what notifications can we get out? So we kind of evaluate what makes sense. We don't want to blast customers with information about an emergency event that's going to be over by the time that they get the notification. But we do. The plan is to incorporate, and typically, we haven't had an emergency event in quite some time, but typically PJM would issue a hot weather alert, and maybe there's something going on with generation. We tend to get a little bit of a feel when it's looking good for an emergency event, and in that case, a lot of times we would already be in an energy savings day,
Right.
So we would have been proactive about it, so that if PJM does have to issue, our behavioral customers are already taking action.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any more questions on this?
So let me ask you a question. Does that mean, the way you just described it, does that mean you couldn't have 2 energy saving days in a row?
We could.
Okay.
We could. It's not an ideal situation, and we would likely only do it if it looked like the second day was going to turn into an emergency event. But we have had situations where we have post-event notifications going out the same day as pre-event notifications, because they are kind of 3-day events if you think about them from a notification perspective.
Okay. I was just thinking about, you have one of those stretch of 10 days it doesn't go below 90 degrees and you're only running one day.
Yeah, we have had them back to back in the past, and we also balance that with not draining the customers on really hot days. You don't want to be hitting them with events too frequently in cadence, because it would be a poor customer experience. We evaluate all of that. Now, if it turns into an emergency event, we go regardless. But
Okay,
for the
thank you.
discretionary events, we kind of balance that. Okay, if no more questions, we can move to the next slide, which is peak rewards. So program results, we have 327,000 customers enrolled in our program, with 331,000 AC devices and 22,000 water heater devices. Peak Rewards AC program is in 33% of eligible homes, meaning homes with central air. The load reducing capability for 2017 is estimated to be 351 megawatts for AC and 5 megawatts for water heaters. For a smart thermostat update, as a reminder, we ended the pilot in Q2 of 2017 and began rolling out with the new Wi-Fi thermostats in Q3. For the period of this report, 7,600 thermostats were installed, and that included upgrades and new customers. And as a reminder, in addition to the demand response benefit from these thermostats, we also do see an energy efficiency benefit. It's around 332 kilowatt hours per device that we install.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Just on the demand response programs, and as you know very well, demand response is very important to the state of Maryland for a number of reasons. But we're now on borrowed time with PJM. After this last auction in 2 years, we're going to lose significant value. Given that there is a proceeding, I think it's the summer-only demand response task force, are the Exelon companies, particularly PHI and BG, are you involved in that at all? And do you communicate with the Exelon the importance of demand response to the state, and in your participation weigh in on behalf of the importance of trying to retain the value of these programs?
We do. Our Bill Pino, he heads our market operations group. He is actively involved on the task force, working with all of Exelon utilities to push for how we want to change PRD so that we can put in for the summer only resource. They are actively involved in that. We are closely monitoring it. I spoke with him ahead of this hearing, and he was still supportive of the demand response programs, and said, even if nothing happens and we still have the aggregate that we can do, which is how we're bid in now, that's still an option. It's not as, the economics aren't as great, but they're still there, and in which case we would still support the programs.
Okay, that's good to hear, because sometimes it's my impression that companies get a lot more attention from PJM than states do. So it would be very helpful to have a strong statement from companies like yours that have great demand response programs to weigh in on trying to retain all the value we can from this investment we've made in these programs. So.
Yeah, I was getting some notes from him, and I said, okay, I'll let them know that we're pushing for what we want, and he said, make sure you tell them we're pushing hard. We are very engaged in making sure that this.
Okay. Yeah, and as you know, OPSI has been very involved, and since Exelon is a major company in the OPSI states, we're unified. We don't unify often at OPSI on issues, but we are definitely unified in the demand response.
I think
question.
in addition to the need for it, I think it does drive a huge customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction scores have been in the 90s for years. Customers really do like the program, so there's that side also as well.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
At this point, this should not be a surprise question. There was some discussion from the marketers with some concern with respect to the use of the EmPOWER logo in combination with the company logo. Do you have, can you respond to that and let us know how you see this working, please?
So certainly similar to the other utilities that have already testified to this matter, we agree, and we will try to reach parity wherever we possibly can. We did, because we realized that it's important to point out very clearly where we felt the logo could be represented and where it could not. That's the reason why we went to the effort of developing a table for the work group to point out, so that it was very clear there were instances where you might not see the logo, and largely those are due to the application of a message that we would send to our customer, the medium that we would use, and specifically Ms. Raley pointed out a good example of point-of-sale material that you might see in the lighting aisle that is so small that you just simply couldn't provide a logo or put a logo on there. We hear very clearly the Commission's point about this, and we will seek in every instance to gain parity where we can, similar to what we've done in the past with the previous EmPOWER Maryland logo before it clearly became obsolete with the CFL bulb on it. But we will look to that. We were active participants in the work group as well, and we do support the fact that EmPOWER Maryland is something that customers want to know about, and we will make every effort to wherever feasible, ensure that that logo appears, or the wording. Recall that there was wording specific that this Commission gave directions on, that we would provide that as well, depending upon the medium.
Thank you.
And I thank you for that response also. Again, just at least my experience, you would miss me 100% of the time if you followed that table strictly. I mean, because again, I don't want to keep repeating myself. So I don't know if I'm the typical type of person who would engage with EmPOWER, but again, I would miss all your computer ads, or I would miss the fact that it's EmPOWER on the computer ads, the idea of the banners, when I'm at the store, and when I'm sitting in the car, which I tend to with the commute to Fort Washington. So I just offer that to you. So thank you.
Understood.
Yeah, let me join in that, and thanks for your participation. And thanks for sending us only one EmPOWER Maryland logo to choose from. So that that
You
helps.
can choose A or A or A
Exactly.
or
That's the
A.
kind of choice we need up here. So especially for a logo. So it looks great. So thanks for doing it, and thanks for doing the co-branding. But I just want to make sure that you know and everyone knows that at least I view the utilities branding of their energy efficiency programs is also very important, and that you should continue to do that. And that you're always going to be closest to your customers than a state agency ever would be. And so that relationship between utility and the customer and the services, energy efficiency services you offer is a very important one. And so I'd encourage you to continue that, and also look at co-branding as something that we should do. But we should also be aware of the cost effectiveness and the prudency of expending ratepayer funds as we do. And radio ads are a good example. We need to make sure we're not spending a lot of ratepayer funds for extra, very expensive commercial, time if it's not moving the ball forward. So keep that in mind as well. And Mr. Walls, I had a question for you about, first about with AMI and for residential customer in terms of daily usage. If I, as a residential customer, were interested in knowing when I'm going beyond my average usage on a summer day, so I can run and cut back on my thermostat. That's information I can get now, or would I have to find a retail supplier who would be able to work with me to get me information like that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you're
sure,
just looking like,
Calvert.
what did I use yesterday?
Well, I'm thinking about it'd be nice to say maybe get a text alert saying, hey, today you're 20% over your average summer usage.
So BGE has high usage alerts, and basically what that does is similar to when you're going over your data on your cell phone, like we've all done. It will alert you when you're trending towards a high bill. So it will look at your bill period 7 days in, and if you pass, it will look at it again at 14 days in. And if at either point your usage pattern is higher than it was the same month of the prior year, you'll get an alert, and it will tell you so many percentage over your usage. If you're not interested in how you compare to last year, and you're just interested, hey, I just want to know, I budget $300 a month for my bill, I want to know if I'm approaching $350, you can also go in there and set a bill threshold to say, please alert me if I'm trending towards a bill that is going to be is forecasted to be $350, and then you can get one that way as well. So we do have that functionality. If you go to bg.com and go to your preference center, you can sign up for that.
All right, thank you. And are you aware of any retail suppliers who offer a service like that for your customers?
So you do need to have AMI data to be able to do that, and unless customers can download their own data, unless they're doing that and providing it to a third party, I'm not aware.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Walls, this may be for you on the issue of low-income customers. We had some discussion. You got a shout out yesterday about your work with Maryland food banks and providing light bulbs. So I wanted to get a sense as to, since you are a leader in this area, and we'd like all the utilities to continue to focus on low-income customers, as well as to what else you're doing, and whether you're serving any low-income customers through QHEC.
Mm-hmm. So to elaborate on the food bank, we've expanded that program. We have a goal this year to provide 500,000 LED bulbs to area food banks in our service territory. So that effort is underway, and we do believe that goal is achievable. So we tried it on for size in 17, and we've been doing it in the last cycle, really, to try to establish relationships and understand what the process would be. So that's number one. Number two, we've always offered quick home energy checkups to limited income customers. In fact, when you go to schedule a quick home energy checkup, real time when you put in your address and account number to qualify, if we see that you are receiving energy assistance, we'll give you a message back that says you might qualify for the Department of Housing and Community Development's weatherization program, but that does not disallow the customer to move forward and sign up for a quick home energy checkup. What we're seeing in terms of participation, and mind you, the only way we can track and count limited income customers is if they're receiving energy assistance. We have roughly between 50 and 60,000 of those customers, so that's about 5% of our customer base. But with Quick Home Energy Checkup, we're seeing almost double that percentage proportionally in participation. We're about 9% participation with limited income customers receiving or taking advantage of the Quick Home Energy Checkup. We continue from a front end too. On the marketing side, we will focus, as Ms. Calvert talked about, focusing the behavioral program to limited income customers. We will do similar things for Quick Home Energy Checkup, as well as where we know there are mediums that would get to that customer base. We utilize those to take advantage of the Quick Home Energy Checkup. To be clear, though, we certainly try not to take away from DHCD's work in achieving more robust weatherization for these customers as well.
Thank you. Appreciate your answer. Any other questions for BG&E?
Yeah, just one quick question regarding your separately branded website, bgsmartenergy.com. Could you tell me a little about the type of traffic you get there? Do you find that it's a useful resource as opposed to maybe some of the proposals we've heard earlier, specifically yesterday, which suggested a more centralized website for marketing and promotion?
It's an extremely valuable site. When you can, in a call to action, we call it a call to action. Every advertisement, every message with a customer typically says, here's a benefit. Now what are you supposed to do? So we can, when we try to drive them to our 1-800 number or bgsmartenergy.com, and our preference is bgsmartenergy.com, it's a very quick, easy, focused area for a customer to go to get maximum information about how to participate in these programs. And in fact, and we can certainly provide it as a follow-up to the Commission, we very, very closely monitor the traffic. So you can, it's a very, if you're into this, if you're into the data side of it, which I happen to be as well, is that when we provide an advertisement or some type of messaging to a customer, we can literally see a spike that goes to that web page. We also track the time at the web page. We track where they go from web page to web page. So it's a critical element to drive our customers to participate in these programs. And of course, like I mentioned with Quick Home Energy Checkup, it's a place where you can actually sign up. It's a place where you can apply for a rebate. It's vital, to say the least.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see some of that data. I think it'd be useful. Also, I know that BG recently launched an app for mobile phones and mobile devices. Have you been incorporating some of the concepts from bgsmartenergy.com into the app as well?
Sure. We for the online tools, we have a lot of that available online. One of the enhancements we just did was if you have an ecobee device, before you had to go to the ecobee portal to manage it. Now you can do that through the app. So we're trying to streamline and provide a consolidated approach for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anything else from PG&E? All right. If not, we have Mr. Bonikowski with us.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Matt Bonikowski on behalf of staff. I'll just give a very brief summary of the company's performance in 2017, 15 through 17, and what it's looking like for the 18 through 20 program cycle. In 2017, BGE exceeded its energy savings goal and met its demand savings forecasts. The company had very strong performance in both its residential and other portfolios. Largest savings were derived from the behavior, CVR, and lighting programs. in the 2017 program year. Over the full 15 to 17 program cycle, the company realized 1.88% average savings as compared to 2013 energy sales, while remaining approximately 26% under budget. BG was able to exceed its 2%, the 2% savings goal in both 2016 and 2017, and forecasts place BG's projected savings for the 18 through 20 years in excess of 2% for every year. And with that, I'm available to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bonikowski? All right, hearing none, thank you. Appreciate your presentation, and thanks to BG&E as well for your presentation. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 11:45, and we will hear from PEPCO and DPL. Okay, if I can ask everyone to take your seats, we will get started. Welcome back, everyone, to the Maryland Public Service Commission's EmPOWER Maryland hearing. Our last utility for these hearings are PEPCO and DPL. So, welcome.
Welcome. Good morning. Doug Michael. I'm here on behalf of PEPCO and Delmarva Power. On my direct left is Wayne Hutters. He's our manager of program design, and he'll be pinch hitting on the residential portion. Next to Mr. Hutters is Mr. Edward Muzz. He's our manager of commercial programs. And next to Mr. Muzz is Susan Marinelli, and she's a manager of our demand response programs. That's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to the people that know this stuff. Right. Mr. Hutters.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. And I'm happy to report that in the 2015 to 2017 cycle, both PEPCO and Delmarva Power exceeded our goals. PEPCO achieved 167% of the goal, while Delmarva Power achieved 154% of goal. These achievements equate to 2.73% and 2.8% usage reduction over 2013 sales for PEPCO and Delmarva Power, respectively. Some stakeholders have taken both PEPCO and Delmarva to task on their performance, but when evaluated at the overall program level at the cycle, I think both companies had really stellar performances, and I'm proud to represent them. So, moving on to the next slide. This slide shows that the residential, for PEPCO, the residential, commercial, and other programs all contributed to PEPCO's performance, and that no one sector lagged the other. You can see in the blue bar down there, the residential, commercial, and then other programs greatly exceeded the goal, and each one has a sizable portion. It wasn't one sector carrying all the rest. Also would like to note that demand savings, while not legislated or commission ordered goal, we do have targets for that, and PEPCO greatly exceeded the targets that we had set forth for ourselves with that program. So again, something else we're pretty happy about. Moving on to the next slide, that's a similar graph for Delmarva Power, and it's a very similar story to PEPCO, as both companies had achieved their cycle goals prior to the semi-annual period. One thing I want to note about this actual 6-month period, the second semi-annual piece, was that because PEPCO and Delmarva Power had achieved our goals, we used this period to begin transitioning the programs to new implementation vendors that we're using in the 2018 to 2020 cycle. We did this because we know that despite the best laid plan, sometimes when you change implementation vendors, there's a little loss in momentum, or there can be some hiccups that occur. And we felt the fact that the programs were in very good shape toward the end of the 15 to 17 cycle, we wanted to sort of use that time to start beginning the transition, so we wouldn't potentially, or we would lessen the impact on achieving our 18 to 20 goals. So why did we choose new vendors? The new vendors were chosen to sort of take advantage of Exelon economies of scale that we feel in the long run will lower overall implementation costs, and that this was made possible by the merger of PEPCO Holdings and Exelon. So we want to, where we can get synergies and save customers money and deliver good programs at a lower cost, we wanted to take advantage of that. Likewise, we wanted to take advantage of the fact that we were ahead of schedule in the cycle that just ended to begin the transition. Moving on to the next slide. The next two slides show that not all programs produce the same level of savings per dollar spent. Programs with high savings relative to a low cost ratio include the lighting and appliances, CVR, and the behavioral program. Now, just because I pointed out those as giving a good bang for the buck, that's not to say that PEPCO and Delmarva Power or utilities in general should only offer these programs. But as it is important to have a variety of customers that serve all of our customers and all customer classes and needs, but that these programs are important and a key driver of meeting our goals and also being cognizant of customer bill impacts, which we know the Commission is also very concerned about. Any reduction relative to plan for these programs potentially could result in higher bill impacts. We can meet our goals, but these are programs that are giving our biggest bang for the buck. Moving over to the next Delmarva Power slide, it's a similar graphic. And I would like to use this slide to just point out that and address the concern that was raised that utilities such as Delmarva Power do not do enough for lower income customers. As this chart shows, in the 2015 to 2017 cycle, Delmarva Power spent 14% of total EmPOWER Maryland spend on DHCD's low-income programs. Delmarva Power also provided over 19,000 LED light bulbs to lower-income customers through the food bank program. I think I would like to share Mr. Shaw from SMECO's mea culpa about not calling it out, saying that this was specifically for lower-income customers. We included details about the food bank program, but we likewise, like SMECO, never referred to it as a lower-income program or specifically serving lower-income customers. PEPCO, if you're interested, also supplied over 12,000 LED bulbs through food banks. Many lower-income customers, as you've heard from other utilities, also received our home energy reports, including tips that help them save energy and money, and also many have participated in our Quick Home Energy Checkup program. Next slide. Next slide, Edward, to my left, and I recently had the honor of attending the 2018 Energy Star Awards, where both PEPCO and Delmarva Power were presented awards for sustained excellence. This is the 5th year that PEPCO has received this award and the 4th year that Delmarva Power has received it. And in addition to the honor that goes to the companies, this award also reflects Maryland's commitment to energy efficiency. The fact that SMECO and BGE also won it really shows Maryland's commitment to energy efficiency and the balanced approach that the Commission has given the utilities, where we've been given latitude to design award-winning programs that help our customers with their energy-saving needs. Yet with this latitude also comes a strong requirement of accountability to the Commission and our other stakeholders. So in accepting the award, I also would like to say thank you to Commissioner Chairman Hughes, Ms. Best from staff, and all the other stakeholders we deal with on a regular basis, because this is a team effort, and at the end of the day, being recognized means that we're doing a good job to help Maryland residents, PEPCO customers, Delmarva Power customers save energy and money to the benefit of all. So,
congratulations.
So now moving over to my pinch hitting portion of the residential program. The residential program delivered a little over 49,000 megawatt hours of energy savings in the second half of 2017, which represented 96% of the energy saving goal for the period. The two programs, as you've heard from other utilities, that really drove this performance were the lighting and the behavioral programs. I also wanted to use this time, I thought the Commission would be interested in some of the lessons that we've learned through this cycle, through our programs, because some programs work really well, other ones run into hiccups, and even when things don't work out, there's usually lessons you can learn to make the programs better. So one of the lessons learned for PEPCO in the residential program was, while our QHEC achieved 95% of its participation target, it only received 69% of its savings target in the second half of the year. And this was mostly due to the EM&V process and the lighting evaluation hours of use adjustment. To mitigate this, as I believe Mr. Walls mentioned that BGE was doing, and PEPCO is going to do it as well, we are planning to record exactly what bulbs are being removed from a customer's home when the new LED bulbs are put into the home. So if they're older incandescent bulbs, the idea is that we can really capture the savings that it is, and it's not just a overall average baseline. If our customers that are getting the QHECs are not average customers, so to speak, we want to be able to determine whether we're still making helping customers a lot, and if our customers getting actually more than we think is an average customer, or are we getting customers that have already done a lot of things on their own and maybe this program's not producing the savings we think it is. But that's something that we've learned from this and we're going to do going forward. Another thing that we've learned is with the shift to performance-based incentives in home performance with Energy Star program, energy savings per completed job has really increased, and we're very happy about that. 61% in the case of PEPCO, signaling that we're getting much deeper savings, just like this modification of the performance base intended. However, one thing that in this second semi-annual period, participation has not spiked as anticipated, but I'll give everyone a little foreshadowing of what's to come. That has sort of turned around in our first quarter, and we've actually seen very strong participation in this program with the performance-based incentives in the first quarter of 2018. So very happy how these changes have really improved the home performance with Energy Star program. And finally, the New Homes program continued working on a strategy of personalizing engagement to support both raters and the builders. This has resulted in stronger relationships and an ability to help builders find deeper savings when they're building new homes for our customers. In the second half of the year, By doing this, we were achieving 90% of the savings target, despite the fact that we only hit 27% of the participation target. So we're getting a lot more savings from each customer. So we can work to get the participation savings up with this increased savings. This is a real win-win and a real improvement for that program. So those were some lessons learned for PEPCO. Similarly, Delmarva Power delivered about 17,000 megawatt hours during the second half of 2017, which represented 91% of the energy savings target for the period. Like PEPCO, lighting and behavior programs were the drivers of that. Lessons learned in Delmarva Power. Likewise, with the hours of use study, the lighting program in Delmarva Tower took a particularly high hit in that. So we're trying to use those results from that EM&V to see, should we be focusing more on different types of bulbs, maybe more specialty bulbs, but really trying to look and see what we can do to minimize that EM&V hit to that program. Likewise, the home performance with Energy Star took a little while slower to ramp up, but the performance is now exceeding expectations. Again, that follows what we saw in the PEPCO territory. Then finally, the lesson learned was the HVAC program produced higher megawatt hour performance versus participation, primarily due to air source heat pumps delivering higher savings per unit than anticipated. Again, 45% of participation target resulted in 115% of expected savings. So again, we're really happy that we can draw more savings from an individual customer on that, and as it was a lesson learned. I just also want to address, I know Commissioner O'Donnell has stated several times today and asked a number of people about how seriously did the Behavior Working Group take the Commission's suggestions and the topics that you asked us to look at when we were looking at that and the working group found it. I was a member of that working group, and I really would like to assure Commissioner O'Donnell and all the commissioners that every topic that was listed to be looked at was taken very seriously and had a I would say a spirited and a well thought out discussion. And with, no topic was just said, oh, well, we're not going to do that, or we're not going to talk about that. Every topic, looking at, should there be a cap on the incentive program, or not the incentive program, on the behavior program, should we look at EM&V 2.0 and how does that compare with what we're doing currently? Those were all items that were discussed in depth and taken very seriously. I would like to share BGE's request that in looking at the behavioral program that the Commission seriously consider approving the program for the 2019 and 2020 years. Currently, we're in a bit of a limbo with our goal. Our plan is mostly intact, but we did plan on having that program for the years 2019 and 2020. So until we actually fill that gap with the behavior program or figure out if we need to use another program to do it, we do sort of have a hole in our plan that we would like to address.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Certainly.
And I appreciate your comments on the work group. But if you do have to supplant lighting capacity decrease with behavioral capacity increase, you're going from a cost-effective ratio, and I was just going to calculate the numbers, but I didn't have a chance. You're going to a less cost-effective ratio when you go to behavior. Isn't lighting more cost-effective than...
Historically, that has been the case, although, and I would need to check my numbers on this, I believe the behavior program is now slightly more cost-effective than lighting. Lighting, when the baseline changed from incandescent to halogen bulbs, became not as cost-effective as it had been before. So I believe they're quite similar, but I believe behavior actually is a little more cost-effective than lighting, although both are very cost-effective.
When I read your pie chart, it looks to me like you're going cost to savings, 7% costs to 11% of the savings for behavior, so it's a ratio of 7 to 11. And in lighting, you're going from a ratio of 9 to 17. So that's a significantly more behavior on that pie chart is significantly more expensive.
Right. Now, that's actually based on total costs and total energy savings. The cost-effectiveness calculations are not quite that simple, unfortunately.
Well, that's the only thing I have to question.
I understand, yes. And I'm not going to argue. You're very correct in your observation there. But when I say cost effectiveness and like a TRC ratio, that's actually using a much more involved calculation where certain costs, such as like customer incentives, are not included in the cost benefit analysis. And there's a whole bunch of other calculations that it's much more in depth than a simple piece like that. But yes, your point is taken.
So I appreciate the fact that the company does, or the companies don't believe that there should be a limitation, but I feel duty-bound to be concerned about the growth of these less cost-effective programs and their allure, my word, my perception, their allure because of how easy they are. You can just ramp up the periodicity, send out more messages, send out more reports, and you can crank some numbers out easier, and you get a return on that, and that's something that I'm very concerned about.
Right. I guess I would take slight issue that it's not as easy as, well, it could be just as easy as you described, but at that point then, as I said before, I expect to be held accountable by all of you. And, if you see the costs for the program, we put forth a cost in our plan for the behavior program, and it's based on an average of 5 or 6 reports annually being sent to customers. If we say we're going to ramp up and send a customer report every month or twice a month, the costs are not going to fit in the budget we have, and we're going to be before you asking for more money. And personally, I don't want to be the one doing that, but because I think you would be asking very difficult questions, and the scenario you just put forth would be one that seemed very obvious in that case. And you could very well tell us, no, that's not what we want you to do, and I would expect that that's what we would hear. So, in what we designed, how we put it forth, we put a budget that's going to do that. If we want to ramp that up, we're going to need additional dollars, and obviously there's going to be a lot of commission interaction, staff interaction, stakeholder interaction, if that was to be obtained. So, it is a possibility, but I don't see it as something that the utilities or Pepco or Delmarva Power could do carte blanche without significant input from many, many parties.
Agreed. I don't disagree with any of that, but I will just say that maybe the companies would consider taking a look at a cap as a tripwire, if you will, let's set a level that we can live under for now, but if we start to get close to that thing, then we may have a problem.
I mean, I think
you would acknowledge, at least I would hope you would acknowledge, you can't just shove all the programming into behavioral and say we're going to send out messages every day and we're going to achieve the savings that we're going to achieve, right?
I could not agree with you more about that.
So there's something less than 100% of the program to where we're at now that probably is a reasonable cap.
Yeah, and I think, quite frankly, I think the behavior programs are reaching I don't think we're going to see major gains from the behavioral programs going forward with what we're currently offering. Now, I think, as was mentioned by other parties, we're looking at smart home pilots. And, how can we use the smart home, use the AMI infrastructure to help customers save energy? Now, some of that, I think, is going to start interacting with the behavior programs. You're going to get more interaction and maybe hard to describe a particular program. I think you're going to see a blending of, different aspects of different programs in the long run, and, how those fit in or how those are captured. Is it a smart home program? Is it a behavior program? Or how do you differentiate from that? So I do see areas like that, using smart thermostats, something that didn't exist when EmPOWER started, I think are going to be a big driver of savings, as well as a tool to help customers using, AMI and the technology of the smart thermostat. So I think we're going to see new things going forward. Do I see behavioral potentially as a potential panacea to give 100% and no other programs? No, I do not.
I certainly agree with the use of real-time measurement use of the technologies that exist right now, which is, to me, is a very different, I hope we get there, but it's a very different notion than some of these home energy reports and that sort of stuff. It's a very different thing. Actually, you can personalize it, you can micro-target it, you can get it something useful to me as an individual.
Right. One of the programs that BG mentioned is something that we're doing as well. We're using the same data that goes into the behavioral programs to offer customers what we call our high bill alerts, which if a customer is trending over, as described before, over a certain level, they would get an alert saying, you're trending over this, and also give them some tips of things they might do to reduce their energy use while they still have time to do it before their bill comes. We're in the process, again, as part of the Exelon merger, of doing some of the improvements that BG mentions, like of being able to set a dollar threshold. We currently don't have that functionality, although we're currently hoping to have that in effect by Q4 of 2018. So we are looking at those where, and again, that's harnessing the same data fields, the analytics of EmPOWER to provide that service.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you engaging me in this discussion, and I would hope that maybe the companies would relook at what is intended by at least the concept of a cap, because it's certainly not to hurt the programs, but it's to put some reasonable limitations on their growth.
We'd be happy to, I'm sure, bring that up again in the working group, and
thank you.
If the rest of it doesn't, I will. So I guess now I'll turn over to Edward unless there's other questions for me.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I just happened to just get my PEPCO behavioral report. And
Okay.
I got it good.
Okay. Congratulations.
Somehow I can never get the grade, but so at that point, do you just compute a behavioral measure, or I do note that there are other places I can click on make your home more efficient, rebates on Energy Star, instant discounts on LED lighting. I mean, how sophisticated does it, or how deep does it go, and sophisticated is it? I mean, are you able to track other actions I might take from this report?
One of the things we do, we obviously are collecting data from our customers who participate in our other programs. It's like the Quick Home Checkup or the Home Performance with Energy Star. So in calculating the savings that we're getting, we are taking that into account to make sure we've backed out the savings from those programs, so they're not being double counted by the home energy report. So we also know that information too. So we're looking at trying to become, with our tips and our pieces, a little more sophisticated and segment our markets more. So if we know, Commissioner Richards, that you've participated in like the air conditioning rebate program, we probably don't want to necessarily push that program to you, because if you just did that, you're not going to be replacing another air conditioner hopefully anytime soon. Likewise, if one of the things we're doing piloting in New Jersey is really looking to see if we can target specific messaging to low-income customers that live in either lower income areas or customers that receive energy assistance, and to see if by getting that special messaging geared to them, they save more than a customer who's not receiving it, or a more generic general messaging. So that's an area where we're looking through our Atlantic City Electric subsidiary, and if that proves promising, that's obviously something we'd like to move to and do in Maryland. The pilot programs that were proposed in the working group, we have committed to looking at the balance billing customers in particular, because those are customers that no matter what their usage is, until the horrible true-up month comes, their bill is the same. So they could use a tremendous amount of energy and they don't get that signal through the bill. So we're hoping that maybe this pilot, through specific messaging, through that, we're going to see if balance billing customers see a better savings level than they had been with the others. And how we're going to do that is that we're going to go to our balance billing population, and some customers who get the home energy reports are going to get the same messaging that they wouldn't have got if we weren't running this pilot. The other ones are going to get messaging that we're going to develop specifically for a budget billing customer, and things that we know that because your bill is the same every month doesn't mean your energy usage is the same any month. We've not worked out the details of this, and then again, to see what the result is. Does this messaging really make a difference to customers? If it does, okay, that's something we want to do more regularly for balance billing customers. If it doesn't, do we want to try different messaging that might resound better with them, or is this an idea that maybe it seemed like a good idea, but maybe it isn't? So those are the type of things we want to look at as well with this program, to try to help customers that we have reason to believe may not be as engaged with their energy bill, just because they're not seeing that price signal. I know, and this is not obviously anything that happened in Maryland, but years ago when they had the California energy crisis and rates were capped and there were shortages and brownouts, and all of a sudden to try to solve that problem, they let the utilities actually charge customers what energy was costing, and everyone's bill went through the roof. But all of a sudden usage went plummeting when people started getting those high bills. So obviously we don't really want to put customers through pain, but at the same time, is knowing what you're consuming and what the value of that does make a difference for customers.
Thank you. So there is some customization to this then.
Yes,
that's interesting.
And we're looking as we go on to do more.
Great, thanks.
All right, good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. My name's Edward.
Before we go on, can I back up?
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
sorry, I apologize. I wanted to follow up with you on your discussion of pilots a little bit. The work group also rejected the notion that we put in our previous order that we consider innovative MMV with the behavioral programs, piloting that, coming up with a pilot. And it basically says we're confident the current system works fine, and we don't want to do that pilot. But you alluded to in your colloquy with me the kind of merging of the technology, the AMI technology with the existing behavioral programs and how that all works together. Wouldn't that be something that would be beautifully ripe for such a pilot?
Well, I think we're already using the AMI data. We daily send a feed to our vendor that provides this service of the AMI data. So they're getting that information. They're putting it through their algorithm. We see in real time. We can get from Oracle whenever we want information about how overall the customer groups are going through, how the test group's performing versus how the control group's performing. So we're using that real data. The information that we're providing customers is in near real time, and the methodology of having a test and control group really is the ideal form of EM&V, but unfortunately, you've heard this before, I don't need to repeat it.
I have. I think there's a great opportunity for the utilities to learn together, and the commission and the state to learn together how to use these technologies more robustly and how to not be afraid to look beyond the next level and through a pilot. And that way you can formally capture it, memorialize it, learn from it, share it, and it's not just the utilities kind of...
Right. I think the idea, particularly of the working group, and I think it was mentioned in there, that not to dismiss, AMI-enabled EM&V outright across the board, but that there's probably other programs that we're offering which would make a much better pilot, programs where we're having to use data that is older and, not as real time. I think that was the idea, that it's not necessarily inexpensive, but there's opportunities that really might show a better need that might be better applicable to other programs.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry I interrupted you and came back, but your discussion of the notion of some pilots, while the commission maybe suggested or requested consideration of pilots in its previous order, was rejected, and I've heard that several times over the last
it was definitely talked about. It was talked about quite extensively.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
So, excuse me, I'm actually not upset that you interrupted him because I had a question too.
Still on the hot seat here.
I'm looking at actually the same slide you have up here now, the first bullet under programs that did not meet target and why, and the lessons learned. I read through your report and I was trying to understand what element of the multifamily programs resulted in confusion to consumers, and then what type of lesson learned did you take from that and in order to correct it or to resolve the problem?
Sure. Yeah, that's actually mine. So
good.
I was going to get
Right
there.
on point.
But to address the question, the multifamily programs, there were actually three of them. There was multi-meter, mastered units, there was multi-dwelling, and a multifamily common area. And quite frankly, it was confusing for me to keep track of all the rules, as well as customers, to find out where they would qualify and which area to send them to. So since there were these three different programs with these different qualifications, in the cycle 4 we combined them into the prescriptive program. So the lesson learned was just to streamline, make it easier for the customers so we can actually explain the programs a little easier to them and they can understand the energy efficiency opportunities.
Okay, so consumers had to know which program to apply for.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, so let's see. So starting off, my name is Edward Muzz. I'll be talking to you about the commercial and industrial performance for PEPCO and Delmarva. Starting off with PEPCO, the commercial and industrial portfolio delivered 36,821 megawatt hours during the second half of 2017. This represented 36% of the energy savings target. So this is a lower number that I'd like to see. I'll admit that with you. As Wayne alluded to earlier, this was due to the changing of vendors. So under Exelon Convergence, we changed vendors to offer our customers a cost savings, streamline operations. So while this was a transitionary period, I see that the cycle 4 will be much stronger as we use this time to transition and build a pipeline for 2018. The strongest performing sectors were colleges and schools and hospitality. They contributed 37% of the energy savings and 20% of the participants for the second half of 2017. As we got to earlier, some of the lessons learned, starting off with how we exceeded target. The existing buildings program really benefited from increased account executive outreach. So these are account executives go out with their customers, and they meet with them, explain the programs, and they help them walk through the application process. So I feel like they really went out there. They did a nice job getting these applications in. Another program that did well was the retro commissioning program. This exceeded target by really increasing marketing and customer awareness in the PEPCO territory. So it's a tough concept for customers to understand what is retro commissioning. The team did a nice job going out and informing our customers on that program. A few programs that didn't meet target and why, as we went to the multifamily programs, were consolidated to simplify them in the next cycle. Also, CHP was negatively impacted by the valuation of a system that was unable to operate continuously for the first 6 months. This created a 64% decrease in realization rate. So bottom line, this project was commissioned too early. It was not operating continuously, and on the evaluation front, we were hit pretty hard on that. So in the future, we're going to be much more conservative in our commissioning and make sure that these projects are fully operational and ready to run, so we don't get hit with that evaluation. Also, the custom program was impacted by weak long-term pipeline. So in 2016, there was a program hiatus. These are long sales cycle processes, typically 2 to 3 years, and there was just a weaker pipeline. So the team actually collaborated with BG&E. We had a custom tech expo actually here in Baltimore, invited customers and vendors, and we taught them about the custom programs and had a lot of great customers come in, learn about what we're doing, and hopefully we'll be driving more projects the next 2 to 3 years. Frustrating part is that the sales cycle is very long for custom. Moving on to Delmarva. The Delmarva story is actually different, which is nice to see, because usually it's more underperforming due to its rural nature. So the C&I portfolio delivered 39,671 megawatt hours during the second half of 2017, and this represented 95% of the energy savings target. Hospitals and healthcare providers and industrial warehouse sectors were the highest performing sectors and contributed 83% of the megawatt hour savings and 19% of the projects for the second half of 2017. So how did we become so successful in Delmarva? I would say the first thing was the custom program received a large chiller project late in the year, and this really allowed the custom program to do well in that territory. Also, the CHP program had a large project at Peninsula Medical Hospital in Q4, and that drove the savings there. Other programs that did not meet target, the small business program had lower participation. Usually it's a lot of seasonality on the eastern shore. The team is actually doing a Delmarva Blitz right now. I believe it ended today, where our team is going out and they're engaging the customers. They're pretty skeptical. They want to know who you are. They don't like out-of-state license plates and things like that. So we go in, we make them comfortable, and we teach them about the programs. Retro commissioning program actually underperformed in the Delmarva area. So I feel like while we did a good job focusing in PEPCO, sometimes it's like spinning plates. Delmarva fell off. So this is also part of the Delmarva Blitz. We're talking about retro commissioning. We actually changed the program name to Building Tune-Up. I feel that's a little more customer-friendly, less intimidating. And actually in the cycle 4, the performance has stepped up quite a bit for Building Tune-Up, which you'll see in the coming months. And also multifamily programs were changed here as well and combined and consolidated to simplify the process for customers. With that, I'll be passing on to Susan Marinelli for updates on EWR, unless there are any questions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Susan Marinelli for Energy Wise Rewards, Direct Load Control Program. Start off talking about PEPCO. At the end of 2017, we had exceeded our installation target by about 13%, with about 223,000 devices installed in 198,000 of our customers' homes. So that's about 65% of our eligible customers that could participate in the program. Now, what eligible customers means is that a customer has to have either a heat pump or an air conditioner in order to be cycled with one of our devices. As you know, in 2015 to 2017 program cycle, we were also working on installing Wi-Fi thermostats to replace some of our original thermostats that had been installed when the program started in 2009. And in Pepco service territory, we replaced about 6,600 thus far. Some of those thermostats that we installed in 2009, by the way, through this process of refreshing our system, we've also found that some of those thermostats were no longer in place. And so, of course, those customers have been removed through the program. Another thing that I think the commissioners might be interested in knowing is through this refresh process, we've also used the AMI data on an annual basis to go back and see, when we run our events, was there load drop at particular homes? When we don't see load drop, we contact those customers, ask if the device is still in place. If it's not in place, then, of course, they're removed from the program. We also, of course, ask them, too, if they'd like to receive a new device, and if they're just no longer interested, then, well, we are no longer paying incentives. So,
thank you for that. That's
yes.
very illuminating.
You're experienced in this?
No. I'm just saying that I think it's important to acknowledge that there is real-time use, and you can see the real-time change in demand in the curve. You can see it right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are the highlights for Pepco. For Delmarva Power, we have installed 38,000 active thermostats. We've actually installed more thermostats than that, but more than 38,000 are active currently. And those thermostats are in about 33,000 premises. That's 33% of Delmarva Power's eligible customer participation. And in Delmarva Power, we've replaced 4,000 devices with Wi-Fi thermostats during this program cycle. We are continuing to look at bring your own thermostats and how that will couple with our residential program offerings and what platforms we'd be needing to incorporate to also use those thermostats in our direct load control. So ongoing discussions and certainly the hot topic for this program cycle.
Did you receive any feedback from the customers who no longer had their Wi-Fi thermostats as to why they collect any data on that or get any?
Oh, sorry.
feedback?
Do you mean the ones that? Well, in our tech refresh process, we're replacing one-way thermostats with Wi-Fi ones. Or are you saying customers?
I thought you said you found in the refresh process you found customers who no longer had them and you removed those customers from your program.
Yes. So in the refresh process, we're replacing the one-way communicating thermostats with Wi-Fi ones.
Okay.
So using the AMI data, we're finding the one-way thermostats that are not dropping load.
Okay. Got
On
it.
the Wi-Fi, though, yes, we have direct visibility to them, on a daily basis. But you're right. Your point was still valid, even giving AMI data. So two ways to come into that.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking, why were these customers removing these devices that have been installed programmatically? So.
Right. So sometimes customers might have a system upgrade. Maybe they just, have a contractor come in and offer them another product, and our device gets taken off the wall, and then we're not contacted about it. So there's a number of factors.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next slide, talking about our small commercial direct load control program. In Pepco, we've had more than 5,000 devices installed by the end of 2017, and this is about a 17% increase over the previous year. We've had about 3,300 small commercial customers participate in the program. It's very challenging to kind of get some of the pizza shops, beauty parlors, some of our smaller customers to engage in this program. It's definitely a face-to-face conversation, but we continue to chip away to offer this solution to our customers. In Delmarva Power, about 2,400 active devices at the end of the year, with about 1,100 customers participating. So those are all the updates I have on direct load control.
And that's the end of our show, and we're happy to answer any more questions you may have.
Can I just ask the same question about the demand response and the PRD? You heard the question I asked to BGE, so I don't know if I need to repeat the whole thing, but of course it's very important to Maryland. I'd be interested to know the level of participation of the PHI companies on the summer-only demand senior response. task force. Just a
Absolutely.
mouthful. And, any assistance you can provide in that forum to ensure that we can retain the value of this investment we've made, because, if we can't treat it as a supply resource, we're not going to have that revenue stream that is significant to helping to maintain our DR programs.
We agree fully, and we have our load settlement group. I believe Mario Giovannini is our representative on that, and he keeps tabs on everything that's going on in that, and we certainly want to protect our installed asset. I mean, it's been a lot of work, let alone, customer satisfaction. I mean, this is a program that customers enjoy participating in. They like the opportunity to have the device. They feel like they're making an impact, when we have some of those warmer days, and they realize the benefit that they're providing the system as a whole. So, yes, we have no interest in walking away from this program, and we're very actively supporting continuing the summer capacity programs.
Great. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Hutters, I think. The home performance with Energy Star you mentioned, first of all, it's very good to hear that with the new performance-based incentive structure, we're seeing a really good response. You mentioned performances exceeding expectations. Is performance going to exceed forecasts, do you expect, in 2018?
My understanding is that it is trending that way.
Maybe that's a good problem.
It's a good problem to have, although we are looking at can we potentially use the latitude we've been given to adjust incentives to try to keep the program within budgets, and potentially then also looking at, are we going to have to look at another program to potentially provide additional funds, because the program is doing very well.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, with respect to the gas and electric coordinating work group, I assume you all are working on that?
Yes, we are participating in that and plan attending, I believe, next week or the week after the next scheduled meeting.
Okay. Washington Gas indicated that they thought they were getting close to an MOU, but they thought they might need some additional time. Can you comment on your view on that?
We haven't been given a draft MOU yet. We've talked about concepts of things that might be included in that, and fairly substantial comments, but as far as a draft MOU, we've not seen anything from Washington Gas yet. So obviously, when we do receive something, we're going to take a look at it very seriously, and we'll try to work with them as well as the other stakeholders to come to some sort of agreement, but I don't really have a lot of details to expound upon at this point in time.
So it's Washington Gas has the pen on the MOU?
The commission ordered Washington Gas to have the pen on the MOU,
Okay.
yes.
All right. And how are you feeling about June 1st? Because that's
it's coming
I
up
believe,
fast,
the date.
and I'm a little concerned, actually.
Okay. Have you discussed your concern with Washington Gas?
I've not discussed it recently with them. I have mentioned it to staff, and I assumed that this was going to be a major topic of the next working group meeting.
Okay. My next question is with respect to the ITRON contract. I know that we're talking about the extension, and do you have a sense of one? It sounds like everybody is comfortable with the ITRON services that they're currently providing. There's been some questions about trying to take advantage of the AMI data for EM&V. Do you feel like ITRON is looking at ways to be innovative as they move forward with EM&V?
I have not been part of there's regular working groups between ITRON, Navigant, and all the utilities that are looking at EM&V, and I do know that there has been extensive discussion on looking at using AMI data and getting quicker EM&V results and how we might go about doing that. That both, ITRON, the state evaluator, as well as Navigant, the utilities evaluator, have been very much involved in. As far as the details, I've not been in those meetings, but I can get back to you if you would like some more information on specifically in that area what has been discussed. But I know it has been a topic of discussion, and I think both ITRON and Navigant have a very good understanding of it and are looking at ways that it potentially could be used, or other things that could be done to give faster EM&V results so they can be used to better programs.
Okay. And with respect to the Maryland Alliance's concerns with the logo for EmPOWER and the company, Can you comment on that concern as well?
I think my comments are very similar to other ones you've heard. I think where we can accommodate the logo, and I think in many areas it would be pretty easy to do, we plan on doing it and don't have any issue with doing that. There are certain mediums I know that we are concerned that there just really isn't space or for the logo, but again, those have been mentioned previously to you.
Right. Let me just understand, when you're talking about there's no space for the logo, do you mean there's no space for any logo, or there's no space for two logos?
I would really probably have to get back to you on that. I'm not the marketing expert on that, but my understanding is when we're putting out a piece of medium, we want to connect with the customer so that if the customer sees this and wants to act, they know where to act. So I think knowing that the utility is offering it, because who are they going to call? It's the utility or the utilities contractor. There's no, EmPOWER Maryland hotline, or there's no, EmPOWER Maryland call center per se. So I think we do want to make sure that people that might be interested in doing this program, the whole purpose of the marketing, we want to make sure that they know who to contact or how to go about contacting if they choose they want to act. They decide
Well,
they want
sure,
to act.
I get that, but I'm talking about, if you're talking about a little, like this is how much something costs, and it's a little tag on a sign, that, I don't recall, seeing any logo on those kinds of, little tags at, and at Costco, for example, because, that might be where I buy my light bulbs. But if there were a big banner or something that was hanging from the ceiling or something that's hanging up there, that would be something that would potentially have plenty of room for.
We would have plenty of room, and we would support that. Obviously, we're going to work with our retail partners and make sure we're in, guidance with what they expect or any rules they may have on signage in their stores. But yes, there's no reason why in a situation like that there could not be the EmPOWER logo on it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anything else for PHI? All right, if not, let's hear from Ms. Best.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Amanda Best on behalf of staff. I will keep my comments brief, but I just wanted to note that PEPCO and Delmarva Power both exceeded their respective energy savings forecast for the second half of 2017, the program year 2017, and for the 2015 to 2017 cycle, while remaining under budget. Both companies exceeded their interim 2017 energy savings goals by more than 1%, and the three-year average for the energy savings for both companies for the 2015 to 2017 cycle exceeded 2% of energy sales. Staff anticipates the companies to continue these trends in the 2018 to 2020 program cycle based on their approved plans. And I am here for questions if you have any.
All right, great. Any questions for Ms. Best? Not, thank you very much, and I want to thank PHI too for your presentation. Greatly appreciate it. Our last thing for the day is we have staff to come back up for wrap-up comments.
Good afternoon. Dan Hurley on behalf of staff. Joining me is Amanda Best for her final appearance as the technical staff witness on EmPOWER. Seeing the time of the day and it's lunchtime, and we're towards the end of this hearing, I'll keep my comments brief. First thing, after the hearings adjourned last night, I was approached by DHCD, and they mentioned to me that they forgot to mention to you that their request to use the realization rate as they used it in the last cycle, they were hoping for a quick decision on that. So I said I would pass that along to the commission today. So that was their request for, respect the request to have a expedient decision on that request.
Thank you.
Just a couple of the topics that have been gone over for financing. I think it's probably a topic that's ripe to be discussed again. I think our last official report came in 2015 after several work group attempts and commission denials, and I think it went, the commission assigned it to the Public Utility Law Judges Division, and they offered up a report that was filed, that they issued in 2015. And, a first point we could do now, it's 3 years later, so we can look to refresh some of the information in there. We can look at what options are out there, whether EmPOWER should be a primary funder, if it could be a supplemental funder. There's issues we can discuss on financing. In respect to goals, the goals were kind of a tricky issue, given that the last goal was in 2015, and given the 3-year cycle of timing of the EmPOWER cycles. We had a 2015 goal, and 2015 was the first year of the cycle, so we had 2016 and 17 that were, at the time in 2014 when these plans were being developed, were, for lack of a better word, goalless years. After the reports were filed and approved by the commission, then the goal, the 2% goal with the ramp up was established. And I think part of the 0.2% ramp up per year was the commission's recognition that 2% was a aspirational type of goal, and that the utilities had already submitted plans that were approved, and the ramp up, would be an appropriate way to get to 2%. So the ramp ups were based off of the 2016 forecasted energy savings from each utility. And again, those were developed in 2014, and SMECO had, I guess at the time, they had met that 2% goal within there. So they met the 2% goal in 2016, so they did not have a ramp up to 2%. And of course, over the years, situations occurred, and they were having a tough time meeting their forecast. So like we promised earlier with Commissioner O'Donnell, we're going to work with SMECO to see if there's a way to kind of change that baseline as far as where they were compared to the now 2016 baseline, is what the 2% goal is based off the 2016 baseline now. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Any final questions for staff? And I asked you this, Mr. Hurley, but just on the ITRON contract, I mean, it expires June the 30th.
June 30th.
Okay. But would staff's recommendation in terms of when the commission really needs to make a decision on that? I mean, would you prefer the commission make a decision by June 1st or sometime before June 30th?
Yeah, June 1st would be appreciated, and especially if we need to kind of go through an RFP process, then the sooner the better. If it's if the decision is to accept our recommendation to continue with ITRON, then the MOU process with the utility should take a week or two.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify, if staff finds that in their work with SMECO that we don't have the latitude to adjust the baseline, maybe there's something beyond that, if that's what you find, that can be done, so at least the optics of that 2% goal and where the actual performance isn't so dramatic. I think that's important.
Okay. We'll look into that.
Mr. Hurley, the behavioral programs, in terms of authorization of subsequent years, for example, 2019, what is the time frame you're recommending the commission make a decision on that?
Oh, for continuation into admittedly for 2019, not necessarily either one or the other.
Well, in any decision.
I know that was the non-consensus in that report. Is a
right.
couple groups were thinking that's just 2019, and then the other groups were thinking for the rest of the cycle.
Right, or either one. Like, is there a lead time we need to build into that decision?
Well, the programs, we have a program design already from the program plans, even if they weren't approved to continue for 2019 and 2020. Those would that would be the design of the program, would be what they offered in October for the planning cycle. So I don't think you need a lot of lead time. I mean, if it's a decision you're thinking of making within this upcoming order, then that would be plenty of time.
Okay. I mean, is that staff's preference as opposed to a fall order in terms of addressing that issue?
I think the sooner the better. If the commission wants us to look into more information before making that decision, then I think the fall timeframe could work.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else for our staff?
Just to clarify, the reason we didn't approve those 2 years in the behavioral program was because of the 3 requests we issued in our previous order. We wanted to get the results of that back so we could incorporate that into those 2 plan years, but there's nothing to incorporate. Thanks.
I want to thank our staff again for
I just had one last thing to say, not really EmPOWER related. I just wanted to recognize Amanda for all the great work she's done for our division and for EmPOWER. And sad to see her go from the division. It's been really a pleasure to work with her for these past 4 years. But I'm glad she's staying in the building. Thank you.
Well, so are we. So we appreciate your sentiments on that. So again, thanks staff for great work products, and I want to thank all the parties for their great presentations. It's been a very productive 2 days for us. We really appreciate everyone's efforts as we continue to make progress on EmPOWER Maryland. Wish everyone a great weekend. We are adjourned.